Welcome to the Big Frank Show to Go podcast on iHeartRadio. This is our very special 200th episode of our podcast, and we thank you for following it. And if you're not following it, click the follow button up there, and you will get an update whenever we post a new episode. You can also follow me on social media at Big Frank Radio on all of the platforms. Now, today, not only is it a big show because it's our 200th podcast, it's also Halloween time. And our guest is somebody who has written a new book about witches. So I figured appropriate enough time to have Bill O'Reilly on with us. Bill O'Reilly's success in broadcasting and publishing is unmatched. He was the anchor of the O'Reilly Factor, which was the highest rated cable news broadcast in the nation for 16 years. His No Spin News is broadcast weekday nights, 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the First TV digital network now. In addition, he has authored an astonishing 18 number one ranked nonfiction books, including the historical Killing series, the best-selling nonfiction series of all time, with over 19 million books in print. Bill O'Reilly has been a broadcaster for over 43 years. His philanthropic enterprises have raised tens of millions of dollars for people in need and wounded American veterans. His new book, again, is called Killing the Witches, and we are honored to be joined by Bill O'Reilly. Mr. O'Reilly, it is so good to talk to you.
Same, Frank. Thanks for having me in.
So the Killing series has been just unbelievably successful. What is the process for you to determine what subject it is that you are going to write about?
Well, this is the 13th Killing book, Killing the Witches. It's the most successful nonfiction book series on the planet, in the world. I can write about anything that I want, Frank. And we have 19 million copies in print, so you can see, how successful it has been. I chose this topic because the witch hunt is back today, in 2023, in the form of the cancel culture, no due process. All accusations mean you're guilty. That's exactly what happened in Salem. So these crazy little girls, 9 to 12, ran around saying, oh, that person's a witch. She came to me in the middle of the night and made me sign the devil's book, or this utter nonsense that was then put into a court. And then the judges would go, yeah, okay, we're believing the crazy 11-year-old girl, and we're going to hang the accused without any defense. There was no evidence. And so if people understand what happened in 1692, how bizarre and out of control it was, they might take this cancel culture stuff we have today a bit more seriously, which is why I wrote the book.
All right, we're talking to Bill O'Reilly. His new book is called Killing the Witches. And Bill, I thought it was interesting when I was reading through the review copy that I got. My mother and father have done copious amounts of family history. They actually trace some of our family history to the Mayflower, which I found interesting. One of the people you mentioned early in the book is my 10th or 11th great uncle, John Howland. He had a brother who is my direct ancestor that came over a few years later. It was just interesting to see that name in there. But we often think of the time of the Pilgrims as kind of an innocent time. And when you read this book, Killing the Witches, you realize this was a pretty violent time.
Well, first of all, there were so few people in the Massachusetts Bay that almost all of us have ancestors that were involved up there. And I've gotten hundreds of letters, but go, oh, yeah, and this and that. But, Frank, you and I would not have wanted to be on the Mayflower. You know, Americans go, oh, Mayflower, Pilgrims, pet stuffing. No, it was horrible. That voyage from Plymouth, England over to Massachusetts was awful. And then they get here and half of them die and there's conflict all over the place. And, when you read about what really happened, what they do not teach you in school, it's amazing this country even got to be anything. That's how bad it was. And so that's my job. I write about this stuff, and on every page you're going to learn things you didn't know in an entertaining way. This is the best Halloween book, Killing the Witches, you can possibly get. And so that's why it's been so successful.
Bill O'Reilly is our guest on our 200th episode of the Big Frank Show to Go podcast, and Bill O'Reilly's new book, Killing the Witches, covers a lot of ground, a lot of early American history. And witch hunt is a term we've heard for many, many years. How did the witch hunts have an impact on the founding fathers of our country?
Well, I didn't know this. I always learn things when we research the killing books. But Benjamin Franklin was a young teenager in Boston and got onto this witch trial stuff and actually went to the home of the top witch hunter, a man named Cotton Mather, who was a cleric. He was a minister, very famous. And Franklin, young Franklin, and Mather had this extended conversation, and we tell you all about it, what was said, and all of that, because Franklin took notes on it. And Franklin was so unsettled that it never left him. And he took the Salem witch trials into Philadelphia when the Constitution was being written and said absolutely no religion in the Constitution. Patrick Henry, governor of Virginia, said, no, we have to define America, the new country, as a Christian nation. And it was a brawl. And we take you to Philly, and there's this unbelievable brawl. Franklin, Madison, and Jefferson win, which is why today we don't have any imposition of religion in the USA.
Wow, amazing. In the book, you talk about demonic possession and how it is still with us today. That's a little bit frightening, Bill.
You bet. So if you are accused of being a witch, that means you are in concert with the devil. The devil possesses you. The devil tells you what to do, and you do it. And so we have to kill you. Fast forward to this modern era, and this is the last third of Killing Witches, The Exorcist, book and movie. Everybody's seen it.
Yeah.
Is that real? Well, where do you read the documentation on it? It was a real case. 13-year-old boy named Hunkler, okay, in Maryland. And what he went through is just, this is what'll keep you up at night. Because this is so well documented, and we got all the diaries, all the testimony from the doctors and the psychiatrists and the priests who did the exorcism. I mean, when you read that, you go, oh, and, you know, my atheist friends, I go, just read this chapter. What do you think? You know, are all of these people lying? All of them? So we update this thing on demon possession. It is, you know, being dealt with by the Roman Catholic Church today.
Wow, it's incredible. Well, Bill, I just absolute pleasure to speak with you. Very much look forward to finishing this book. I don't. It's heavy read. I don't know if that's how I describe it, but there's a lot in there, and I'm enjoying getting into it right now.
Thank you, Frank. Pleasure to talk with you.
All right, that is Bill O'Reilly, our guest today. Killing the Witches is the new book that is available now in the Killing series. It tells the dramatic history of how the Puritan tradition and the power of early American ministers shaped the origins of the United States. Pretty interesting book. Again, just haven't quite finished it yet, but it is a compelling read. If you're looking for a good, especially on this Halloween, might be one to download and get. Killing the Witches. And that wraps up our 200th episode of the Big Frank Show To Go podcast, available on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on social media at Big Frank Radio. Thank you for listening today.